Okay, good morning. This is a Sichah printed in Chilek Chof Aleph. It's the first Sichah, page 238, Parshas Vayakhel. It's a siyum on Hilchos Beis HaBechira of the Rambam. And the Rambam, at the end of the halachas, discusses the halachas of guarding the Beis HaMikdash. In the beginning, he speaks about the measurements, and speaks about the different sizes in the Beis HaMikdash, and then at the end, he speaks about Shmiras HaMikdash. Aleph. In the Seif from the letzten Perek von Hilchos Beis HaBechira, in welcher der Rambam is mevar, the dinim for Shmiras HaMikdash, at the end of Hilchos Beis HaBechira, the Rambam discusses the halachas of guarding the Beis HaMikdash. Nach dem, was is metar in halachi at Aleph, wie azeh de keinem haben jeden der free, the shachar keinem shiala am the shachar samach le beide gewen, mit steh avugische biyadam. In der Azara, zi alts is dort in Andalum, für the Rambam, in halachi at Beis b'fnei atzmi. Now, so the Rambam discusses, after he discusses in halachi at Aleph, how every day, in the early morning, in the morning shortly before dawn, the Kohanim inspected 2 torches of light fire in their hands, the Azara, to ensure that everything was in order. So the Rambam spells out in halachi at Beis in a separate halacha, and it says like this: Kaseder Azeh oisim b'chol laila v'laila chutz v'leil Shabbos she'en b'yadam eir ala beikim b'neres hadalukin sham me'er Shabbos. Rambam says this went on every single morning, right before dawn. They would take 2 torches and they would inspect the Azara to make everything is in order, except when they did not hold the torches in their hands when Shabbos night. Instead, they inspected by the light of the candles that remained burning from Erev Shabbos. Correct. Yeah, and the Rebbe is going to be medayik. The Rebbe is going to be medayik later in the Sichah. Why he brought it? The fact that he brought it in a different halacha shows that he's not. It's a total different Indian. Now, so that's what comes out from the Rambam. So again, the Rambam in Halachot Aleph says what they would do in regards to every morning. They would take 2 avukais and check the Azara to make sure everything is in order. And then, in a separate halacha in Beis, he says they would do this every single night, except for Leil Shabbos, which they did not actually carry the torches in their hands, but rather they used the candles that were lit at Erev Shabbos. So now the question is like this: is Yidua the Shaila some Rafarshim? It's known, the Kesef Mishnah, and other Rafarshim ask on the Rambam. They ask, the din is doch, the Rambam Paschal become Mekemis as ein Shavuos b'Mikdash until Haneres b'Shabbos is doch nor an Isser Shavuos. So the question is like this: the halacha, as the Rambam in several places says, that in the Beis HaMikdash Shavuos was permitted. Ein Shavuos b'Mikdash. Now, what Shavuos? Shavuos means a gzeira midrabanan. The Chachamim said different gzeiras, even though midiraisa, it's totally permitted. The Chachamim acted with certain restrictions that they instituted for Klal Yisrael. One of them is called a Shavuos, which is a gzeira midrabanan. Now, when it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, ain't Shavuos b'Mikdash. There's no halachas of midrabanan. There's no prohibitions on when it comes to the Beis HaMikdash. Ain't Shavuos b'Mikdash. And we know the halacha is handling the candles of Shabbos is only an Isser Shavuos. Hein for us is when Mishalim B'Leil Shabbos Andrish as aim biyadam ela beikim is how to look in Shom Erev Shabbos. So now the Kesef Mishnah asks, why did the Kohanim change their practice on Shabbos, on Erev Shabbos, or on Shabbos night? They did not hold the light of torches in their hands. Instead, they inspected by the light candles that remained burning on Erev Shabbos. Why do they have to do that? Let them go ahead, take candles, the Chatchila, and hold them. Now, obviously, you're not allowed to take a candle if you know that the candle is going to burn and it's going to add extra light. Then there's mamash, that's an Issa Deiraisa. We're talking about just holding a candle, that's only midrabanan. So why, so if there's no Issa Deiraisa when it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, so why couldn't the Kohanim just hold the torches, the Chatchila? Why do they have to go ahead and only use the light at Erev Shabbos? Now, the Kesef Mishnah answered, so the Kesef Mishnah wants to answer the Rambam and say, Ashani Hacha, the Efsher B'Neiris had look at Erev Shabbos. The Mishnah gives a pashta answer. This case is different because it was possible to use the light of candles that remained burning from Erev Shabbos. The Balz is da an Afsharis, so boide sein, when thereby ois meiden dem Shavuos, So is Mendemol nit matter dem shvus. So the Mishnah says, since an inspection was possible without performing the shvus, the Chacham did not permit the shvus. So the Mishnah now puts in Yisrael when it comes to shvus. When do they say the shvus is permitted? When you can't do something else. But when it's possible to do something else, for instance, let's say to use the candles from Erev Shabbos, so then the dinner shvus still applies. Now, the Rebbe says the teachers are b'tzorachin the anam of first from This question, this answer is still a tzorachin, as the Lechem Mishnah asks and other Mefarshim ask. This is a problem with the Rambam. Why? This is like this. The Rambam paskin Hilchos Avodas Yom Kippur. The Rambam paskins in Hilchos Yom Kippur that the kohen has to that the kohen used to stay up the whole night, or in Yom Kippur, then he would go to the mikveh, etc. And there's different halachas that what they would have to, the kohen would have to conduct himself on Yom Kippur, etc. Now, the Rambam says that as Haya Kohen Gadol Zokan Echela, if, let's say, the kohen was elderly or sick, so then what would they do? Malabn Ashashis Shabarzo Be'esh Be'erev Umatilun Isin Lamacher B'mayim G'dei L'chafik Tzinoson She'ein Shvus B'migdash. The Rambam says that if the kohen was elderly or sick, so they would take these iron slabs, made hot, white hot in fire the previous day, and they would replace in the water to remove the chill. Why? Why was this allowed? This was allowed because Shvus is permitted in the Beis HaMikdash. Chotas oich in dem Fall kemen das bavorden bei Fenacher. As on the Zayin Shvus, even though we can go ahead and make sure that there's no Shvus. We did not malay for days. Oim arvin mayim chaimen b'mei mikveh k'tei taftig sinasan. Like the Rambam says clearly that the Rambam says clearly that hot water, it's possible to do something without a Shvus. As the Rambam says, alternatively, hot water is mixed with the mikveh water to remove the chill. So we see clearly from the Rambam that even though it's possible, what did the Maggid Mishnah say? The Kesef Mishnah said, he says that what's the reason why they would use the candles for Erev Shabbos? Because one is Shvus, ain't Shvus b'migdash, is when you can't do it by Fenacher. But if, let's say, you could do it by Fenacher, for example, like in this case, you could use the candles from Erev Shabbos, then the dinner Shvus applies. The Mefarshim ask, the Rambam says in Hilchos Yom Kippur that the Kohen Gadol, if he would be a Zokan or Chela, they would go ahead and put the heat of the mikveh on using hot iron slabs, and they would put it in on Yom Kippur in order to chill, make the water wasn't cold for the Kohen. Why? Because ain't Shvus b'migdash, even though they could have done it a different way. So we see that the Rambam holds, even if you could do it a different way, the din of Ein Shvus b'migdash applies throughout the Beis HaMikdash. There's no difference if you could do it, you can't do it. The Rebbe says, moreover, the Rambam paskin das Oider Kohen Gadol bikesh li'isnamnim. The Rambam says that if the Kohen Gadol, let's say on Yom Kippur, appears to be dozing off, is Pirchei Levia Makin Lefanov Be'etzba Tzrada. It says that if the young Levium would snap her fingers before him, and we know the din is chosh das is ashvus, even though snapping, right, clapping on Shabbos or snapping is a shvus. But the Rambam paskin Hilchos Shabbos, if the Rambam says in Hilchos Shabbos, und es ist Efsher ben Yinache, es hat andere Mitteln zu helfen dem Kohen Gadol sein wach. There's other ways you can go ahead and make sure the Kohen is up. You can go ahead and sing for him. You can do other things. You don't have to snap your fingers. So what do we see from here? That even if it's B'if and Acher, the Rambam will still hold that Ein Shvus b'migdash. So now the question comes back is, why did the Kohenim, or the people checking the Azara, why did they have to use the candles prepared from Erev Shabbos? Why couldn't they lechatchila hold candles on Shabbos checking the Azara? Base. The Rebbe says, simply speaking, you can make the following distinction. The klal von Ein Shvus b'migdash oich b'de efsher b'inyan acher is blois ben das is an are. Dahainu, es macht sich as spezieller matziv was ken bavonen werden durch ha-Shvus. Is demol dort der heter Shvus b'migdash afilu ben mikon b'efen acher. The Rebbe will give an example. If Haya Kohen Gadol Zokan Ichela. Other A, Bikish Desnamnim, das says, say that Kavua can design from one minute Ashwas. Nor be Mikra Mesiyamim can mean uncommon Sumeter. So, it says like this: the rule that Shavuos is permitted in the Beis Hamikdash, even when other means are available, is applied only, let's say, in an unusual scenario. In other words, when an unusual complication arises in the Beis Hamikdash, that has to be dealt with. So then we say performing Shavuos is permitted. For example, let's say the kohen, was an elderly man, or he's sick, or he appears to be dozing off. In other words, Shavuos may not be employed for routine activities, but it's only relied upon in exceptional cases. Now, benidin didan, that's sich doch wegen, einstellen a sedekavo von anhalbes akene bechol Shabbos v'Shabbos. Where therefore, as we balz is efsher be'ifin acher, is me nit kevea anogas akene be'ifin gazeh, as me soll ständig darfen tonish Shavuos b'mikdash. Now, since our discussion speaks about establishing the routines of the kohenim every Shabbos, and we know an alternative is possible, is me nit kevea anogas akene be'ifin gazeh, as me soll ständig darfen tonish Shavuos b'mikdash. Therefore, we're not going to regulate a conduct for the kohenim in a way that would require them to perform a Shavuos in the Beis Hamikdash constantly. In other words, when do we say in Shavuos b'mikdash? If it happens once in a while or something which is not established, it's like a b'diavad thing, in Shavuos b'mikdash. But to go to Chatchila to set up something that every single Shabbos we're going to rely on this heter or this thing of in Shavuos b'mikdash is very slight. Now, the Rebbe says that Asbar is open to Maspika. Why is this answer not suffice? We do find established the routines of Ein Shavuos b'mikdash even when there is something which is kavua, which is regular. And here's an example: an Erev Pesach is called Yus b'Shabbos. When Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos, so the halacha is the din is as min is mafshet them erev from them korban. Agabi Amaklis, Pofi Bechel, half a piece is Efsher Be'ifin Acher. The halacha is that when Erev Pesach coincides with Shabbos, the hide of the korban Pesach was skinned on top of the maklis, the sticks. It was performed the same way on Shabbos as on the weekdays, even though alternative ways were possible. Which is Adechik Suzagin, as Apish, as Erev Pesach, Cholis B'Shabbos is gerecht, V'arai, Ibal Tzakviyas, Nord Mizran Anazman. It's also very doichik. It's a very shvacha way to answer that Erev Pesach, coinciding with Shabbos, can be categorized as unusual since it occurs only periodically. Why? I don't know. I don't know why that's not a good answer, but whatever says it's a very big doichik to say that Erev Shabbos, Erev Pesach, yeah, but it's a routine. It's not a real routine. Routine means every single Shabbos. You're establishing that every single Shabbos, this is
something that happens once in a blue moon. Like alright, something you happen from about some blue moon. Alright, something happened in front of me. It's not predictable.
Right. So you're saying here it's predictable. It's once in a while. It's not every year, but it's still predictable. And you're saying the types of alright means it's unpredictable. For example, different examples of which are unpredictable. Okay. Gimel. In the halachas hanal, the siyam milchus beis b'chira is arafran noch kamed yukim kolen. Regarding the halachas mentioned above at the end of milchus beis b'chira, there's additional general nuances to examine. Aleph. Farvos bringt der Rambam a dem in hilchas shmiras beis hamikdash. Sorry. Farvos bringt der Rambam a dem in hilchas shmiras beis b'chira. Why does the Rambam point this halacha regarding the Beis Hamikdash in the Shmiras in Shmiras Beis Hamikdash in Beis Hamikdash? The halacha is halacha Yud Aleph gehört zu dem Perek. Redt sich wegen Shmiras Hamikdash. Aber tegen halacha Yud Aleph halacha Yud Beis, das geht nicht scheich zu Shmiras Hamikdash, nur zu der Achonarach damals zu Seder Abedes Hayem. But gedarf beidig sein, sie als in der Azar ist geht der Beile mehebe. So like this in Hilchos Tmidim Musafin, steht Take dort bekitzer. So the first question that I'm asked is, this paragraph, L'chayda, doesn't belong in Hilchos Shmiras Hamikdash. This subject belongs, it's seemingly unrelated to the guarding of the Beis Hamikdash. It relates to the preparation of the daily avodah, the kohanim required to make sure that everything in the azara was ready for that day's avodah. Accordingly, doesn't these halachas belong in Tmidim Umusafin? And actually brought the kiss over there. And Beis, the last halacha Yud Beis, is a hemshich from the halacha shel Lefanel, and Mufurish Geseder Hazeh, from halacha Yud Aleph Eisen Chudim. Nor Miz Meser, as B'Shabbos is given Andish. So was hat this the Rambam ausgeteilt, now so you're saying before, you'll see. So was hat this dort Rambam ausgeteilt, and halacha B'fnei Asmei. Fradas Kidua is Hafradas halachas Brahma B'diuk, we learned of their Fun Chudim. Now the question is, in the actual halachas over here, between Yud Aleph and Yud Beis, why does the Rambam have to make them two different halachas? Why not put Yud Aleph and Yud Beis in the same halacha? Because it's basically saying the same thing, that they would go ahead and check the Azara. And on Shabbos, they would not use the candles. They wouldn't hold the candles. They would use the air from before that. So the Rebbe says like this, in Dalit. Their beer was that. The explanation is as follows. The Rambam is mevar b'tchilas haperek. Ashmiras hamikdash is nit a pachad oyevim b'choli nor mishum koved hamikdash. The Rambam says that the guarding of the base of Mikdash was not due. Sometimes you guard because of guarding is you're scared of the enemies, or you're preventing the enemies, or you have guarding that's mitzat koved. So the Rambam says in the beginning of the Perek that the Shmiras HaMikdash is not because the Yidden were scared of the enemies, it was because of to glorify the Beis HaMikdash. Right? There used to be Bachram guarding the Rebbe's house, right? Was that also covered, or that was Bachram guarding the Rebbe's house? No, Mishum covered HaMikdash. While Eini Dema Paltan Sheyesha Lo Shemnim, the Paltan Sheyesha Lo Shemnim. Why? Because you can't compare between the palace with the guards to a palace without it. For them, as moving is understood as the Pratim Vegen Velchas Retzich in them Perek Ches Zayin Mishum covered HaMikdash. So it comes out that the details that are mentioned in Perek Ches is because of covered HaMikdash. It's all for honor of the Beis HaMikdash. Api Zeh Kemazogin. So now, based on this, you could say, as Eich Dar Inyan Habdika is Mishum Kavod HaBayis. That this idea, this purpose of inspection was also Mitzad Kavod HaBayis. Kavod of the Beis HaMikdash. My time at the Rambam, and I used in the halachas at Aleph in Beis, in them Perek. So therefore, the Rambam put halachas of Aleph in Beis, even though the Chayir should be in Fidus Midin and Musafin, the Rambam put in the hilchas of Beis HaMikdash, the Beis HaPchil, Shmiras HaMikdash, because this Perek has to do with Kavod of the Beis HaMikdash, and this is a Kavod for the Beis HaMikdash. What does that mean? The Bedika is Getan Gevar and Beikar nit nor als Hachonetz of Beis HaMikdash, nor als Kavod HaMikdash. The inspection was primarily performed not only to prepare for the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, but to glorify the Beis HaMikdash, a Kavod for the Beis HaMikdash. Kumuvor b'Malkam Barucha, like he explains, and this is the Rebbe puts to a Chelik at Gimel, Likkutei Sichos, as it's brought down in another place in Likkutei Sichos, as a Teichen HaKavod durch Shmiras HaMikdash, was steht in dem, was the Shmira weiß, as mis nit Masiach das von dem Mikdash, that the theme of the guarding of the Beis HaMikdash illustrates that one's attention was never diverted from it. Is the same thing in regards to checking. A mit was yet in the phrase min veidik is min meisiv in Kavod HaMikdash. So by inspecting every morning, the Beis HaMikdash's glory was magnified. While Pizeh, Yumtach was die Kenem HaBeitkim, nach der Bedika haben gesagt, Elu le'elu, Shalem hakel Shalem, und nicht Aloshin, was ist Lechere, mehr Maßen zu sagen, als altes Beseder, Muchel HaBeis HaMikdash, der Akol Bem Kemei, or the Akol Koreki, well, that's the Aloshin shall cover. Now we can understand and we can appreciate why the Kenem would say, after they inspect it, they say, piece onto piece, everything is a piece. Rather, and why don't they use the Lashon of everything's okay or everything is fit? Why? Because over here we're bringing out Vaida. The whole inspection was not because things needed to be inspected. It's because there was an inyan of Kavod. And because there was an inyan of Kavod, this idea of inspecting on Shabbos, Erev Shabbos, B'chlal, that's why the Rambam, that's why they would use the Lashon of Shalom Hakel Shalom. Okay, a little bit more. Hey. The fees there, that verantworten die Shaila anal, and the less halacha back to them. Now we can understand, we can answer the above question in the final paragraph. Let's preface. In dem Inyan von Nes Hashem de Chanukah, was Timukah Hashmana Shabbeichel, בודקו ולמצוא לפח אחד של שמן שימונח בחץ משוקן גדול, Now, everybody knows the miracle of Nes of Shemen of Chanukah, that the Yevonim were metame all the Shemana Vayakhel, and they checked and they only found one jug of oil, which was munach b'ches mishokayin gadol, and we know that it only had enough oil for one day, and it lasted for 8 days. That's the simple miracle of what happened on Chanukah. That's what's brought down in the Gemara Shabbos. So now the Pnei Yeshua asks a question. As you do it, the Shaila that's known, this that I've been bringing it a few times in Likkutei Sichos, the Pnei Yeshua, as tumo hutur b'tzibur. There is an opinion that when it comes to, if let's say the congregation it was tamei, so the halacha is tumo hutur b'tzibur. That it, if most of the majority, if let's say 51% of the Kolel is tamei, you're allowed to bring harbonis, you're allowed to do the avodah even b'tamei. So now the question is the day azu for vasa the Eibishter gedaf machan nesa shemen. If the halacha is tumo hutur b'tzibur, so now the community, the congregation was all tamei, so the halacha is tumo hutur b'tzibur. So why is the day azu for vasa the Eibishter gedaf machan nesa shemen? Why did Hashem have to go ahead and make a whole entire miracle of the Nes of Shemen? Why? So they should have pure olive oil. You can go ahead and light the candles with Shemen Tameh because Tumah Hutur B'tzibur. That's the Pnei Yeshua's question. Now, and for them Mefarshim, so the Mefarshim, the Pnei Yeshua, and other Mefarshim answer as Alpha P.S. Tumah Hutur B'tzibur. Yes, you're right. Tumah is Hutur B'tzibur. Hashem wanted to show how much He cherishes the Eden. Und die Rebbe hat gemacht im Nest, die Jeden soll mekayim sein in Mitzvah von Adlok es Neres am Nera, und an Eifim was man darf nicht ankommen zu Heter von Tumah. Hashem made the miracle with the Nest of Chanukah because He did not want the Eden to have to come on to the Heter of Tumah Hutur B'tzibur. That says, das was Tumah Hutur B'tzibur is in the gap, it doesn't show Yisrael. This, you're right, Nitzad Avodah Tumah Hutur B'tzibur. But if you want to know about the cherishness of the Eden, we have to stay away from this halacha of Tumah even when it's mutter. Azay is Yishlemer Binyanenu. Same thing by us. If checking the Kohanim checking the Beis Hamikdash was just a regular hanoga, or the Afilah Achelet from Avedis Hamikdash was part of the Avedis Hamikdash, is a din is as Ein Shvus Hamikdash. So then you're right. Allah is Ein Shvus Hamikdash. When the Rambam zog as das is a hetem lechatchila that Ein Shvus Hamikdash is a hetem lechatchila when it comes to the hanoga and the Beis Hamikdash. Baldo Brazi Bedika is for the mitkvoi covered Hamikdash. But now that we're saying that the Bedika has to do with actually honor of the Beis Hamikdash, had gosh is great covered Hamikdash valderech. You're not scared of the Mikdash. You're scared of the person who made the Mikdash, who commanded about the Mikdash. So the same thing by the honor of the Beis Mikdash is by them. It's massam as the bdikas as mendaf ankum. So I had to for the inshus Mikdash. We were speaking about the honor of the Beis Mikdash. So when it speaks about the honor, we don't want to come on to the head of inshus Mikdash.